You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and there is a lot of football to get to, some basketball, some baseball, and a very, very tragic hockey death. One of the most underrated players in NHL history passed away today. So I'll eulogize him at the end of this show. But I have to start with the idiot that is Quinnen Williams, who was arrested last night at LaGuardia Airport for criminal possession of a weapon. He brought a gun into LaGuardia with an Alabama permit. He did not have a New York permit. New York is one of the most tough states to get a firearms license. Alabama is one of the easiest. But regardless if you had a permit or not, there's no excuse to bring a gun into an airport. How stupid can you be? See, here's the best part. We don't know if the gun was loaded or not. Does it matter? Does that really matter? You brought a gun into an airport! And to make matters worse, he tried to board the plane with the gun. What happened was, he was arrested at the Delta check-in counter. He never got to security. But once you're at that check-in counter, you can't put a gun in the suitcase. You have to do that beforehand. I think, I don't know this for sure, but I think that the proper way to transport a gun on a flight is to disassemble it and to have it in checked luggage. I think that's the correct way to do it. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm not an attorney. This guy has to be one of the biggest idiots on the face of the planet. Look, I understand that he has to be given due process, and look, I highly doubt he's going to serve jail time over it. It'll probably be a fine, community service, something like that. A slap on the wrist. But he could be suspended under this. This falls under the personal conduct policy. Quinnen Williams could be suspended over this. And the Jets need him. You wouldn't know it by how he played last year, but he's a talented player. This could go down as another Kyle Brady over Warren Sapp moment for the Jets. Or Ken O'Brien over Dan Marino. You take a decent player over a great one. Last year, I was screaming for Josh Allen. Screaming for him. Jets had an edge rushing issue. They needed an outside linebacker a lot more than they needed a defensive tackle. They already had Steve McClendon. They drafted Nathan Shepard in the third round last year. Why did they draft another defensive tackle? I mean, there's no doubting that Quinnen Williams was a great prospect coming out of Alabama, but they needed an edge rusher so much more. And then in the third round, they take Ja'Kai Polite. Ja'Kai freaking Polite! Didn't play a game this year! He was cut by the Jets after the preseason. The guy ticked off Gase, he ticked off Douglas. Jets didn't want him around anymore. You know what? I commend him for it. But the simple fact is you whiffed on a third-round pick. And you know what? It looks like you whiffed on the first-rounder. I'm not calling Quinnen Williams a bust. But I think it's fair to say that Josh Allen is going to be the better player. And it's definitely fair to say that the Jets should have taken Allen over Williams. Realize something. Free agency is going to hit in less than 2 weeks. It seems like all the big edge rushers except Jadeveon Clowney are going to get franchised. And I'd be really surprised if Clowney ended up with the Jets. There has been very minimal speculation among insiders putting Clowney on the Jets. Would Jadeveon Clowney make sense for the Jets? The answer is yes. But I've seen more speculation putting him with the Giants than I have the Jets. That means that the Jets are going to have to address that hole in the draft when they could have just addressed it last year and taken Josh Allen. The only first rounder at outside linebacker this year is Isaiah Simmons. I got news for you. He's not slipping to 11. He's an athletic freak. I mean that in the nicest way possible. You think he's slipping to 11? I've heard some people say that Zach Bourne out of Wisconsin is a late first rounder. I personally disagree with that. I have an early second round grade on him. So even then, if he's an early second rounder, the Jets aren't getting him. There's a chance of it, but it's unlikely. ESPN has him ranked as the 37th best prospect in this draft. The Jets pick at 11 and 48. Bourne isn't slipping there. They're going to have to take one of the Alabama guys. I don't want one of the Alabama guys. I want Josh Allen. I want Isaiah Simmons. I want Jadeveon Clowney. I've seen a bunch of articles and a bunch of people have asked me what I want the Jets to do in the draft. Well, the simple fact is I just can't answer that now. I don't know how free agency is going to shake out. People are linking the Jets to a wide receiver or an offensive tackle a lot at 11. That's all well and good, but what if the Jets re-sign Anderson? What if the Jets bring back Beachum and Shell? Then it makes no sense. That's why I don't do mock drafts until a week before the draft. I've seen some people who've done like 9 or 10 mock drafts already. How can you do 9 or 10 mock drafts now? You have no idea what the rosters are going to look like 3 weeks from now. You know, I don't want to sound so downtrodden about the Jets. I understand that Quinnen Williams still has talent, and I'm not calling him a bust. Did he look like a bust last year? Yes, he did. Alright, he did not have a good year last year, especially when you factor in the fact that he was the 3rd overall pick, and, according to some people, the best prospect in the draft. You've got to be an instant game changer there, and Quinnen Williams was not that. It's funny. At the trade deadline last year, the Jets were 1-6. Joe Douglas supposedly received a monster offer for Quinnen Williams. He turned it down. Quinnen Williams was untouchable to him. Now, I wonder if he changed his tune. And when I heard that, I was thinking to myself, well, what was the offer? You know, if it was a Khalil Mack type offer, yeah, I'll do that. When you're 1-6, no one should be untouchable. Not the quarterback, not Jamal Adams, not Le'Veon Bell. not the defensive tackle, no one. Taking Quinnen Williams over Josh Allen may be one of the biggest mistakes the Jets have ever made. And they've made a lot of them. I'm not kidding. Down the line, we really could be looking at this as one of those head-scratching moments. How on earth did the Jets do this? JETS. Just endure the suffering. There is another piece of Jets news. It's really not as important as Quinnen Williams being a complete moron. According to Adam Kaplan of InsideTheBirds.com, the Jets want to bring back Alex Lewis. That really shouldn't be a huge shocker to anyone. I mean, after all, Douglas did trade for Alex Lewis. And Lewis had a good start to the year. And he actually looked like he was going to be a pretty good player for the Jets, but towards the end of the year, he fizzled out. According to Pro Football Focus, last year he had a 56.1 overall grade. He's always been a much better pass blocker than he has run blocker. I don't mind the Jets bringing him back for depth. The one thing I'm dreading, I don't think that this is going to happen, but I really hope that Douglas doesn't bring Alex Lewis back and say he's going to start next year. No. You've got to sign Connor McGovern. You've got to sign Greg Van Roten. Alex Lewis cannot start next year. Now, I think Douglas will be smarter than that. I think Lewis is a fine backup. No complaints there. He just can't start. That's the thing. That's what I'm hesitant about. One thing is for sure, NFL free agency is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to have a lot of fun talking about it on March 23rd. I'll repeat what I'm going to do for March Madness and NFL free agency. March 16th, early, you're going to get a First Four preview along with an interview with a really, really good friend of mine. We're going to preview NFL free agency and March Madness. March 17th, St. Paddy's Day, no show. March 18th, my birthday, no show. March 19th, early, a big round of 64 preview. It's going to be a lot of fun previewing all 32 matchups. March 20th, no show. March 21st, a round of 32 preview. That is going to be very difficult to produce, but I'm going to do it. It just means I have to stay up late, which I have no problem doing. I'm going to be up anyway, might as well do something useful. I have a tough time falling asleep, man. I toss and turn like crazy. Once I get asleep, I can stay there until the cows come home, but falling asleep is a huge issue. March 22nd, no show. March 23rd, NFL free agency recap. I'm going to go team by team, listing all the moves that they made and saying whether they did a good job or not. March 24th, I have an interview scheduled to be posted that day. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet. I'll leave you in suspense. March 25th, Sweet 16 preview. The reason that I'm doing that a little early is because March 26th, I have an MLB season preview lined up with an exclusive interview with someone that, again, I'll leave you in suspense. And March 27th, there isn't going to be anything special. But I'll say this now. April 2nd is the Yankees home opener. I always take off for the Yankees home opener. It's a 1 o'clock start. I have missed school for it. I have missed work for it. I will continue to do that. April 2nd, there will be no show. I will be at Yankee Stadium. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's move over to Monday Night Football and the news that ESPN is trying to put together the best broadcasting duo in sports history. Supposedly, they want to trade for Al Michaels and bring in Peyton Manning as his color commentator. Now, Peyton Manning is already under contract with ESPN. He does Peyton's Places, a very good show. You can tell he's a smart guy. You can tell he'd be a fantastic color commentator. Maybe not as good as Romo, but certainly fantastic. And supposedly ESPN is prepared to offer Peyton Manning $20 million a year. ESPN historically has not done a good job managing its finances. It's why they've had a bunch of layoffs in the past few years. You cannot give Peyton Manning $20 million a year before he's ever called an NFL game. Look, I understand that you're making a big play for the Super Bowl. ESPN is owned by Disney, and Disney also owns ABC. So I think part of the rationale behind offering Peyton that contract is we can get the Super Bowl at some point. Now, it'll be interesting if they put it on ABC. ABC currently doesn't televise football. I know that they're going to do something for the NFL draft. But that would be weird to not have ABC air a single NFL game and then have them air the Super Bowl. Unless you're going to put the Super Bowl on cable. Which you could do. I don't know anyone that doesn't get ESPN. But that would be weird to not have it on network television, to put it on cable. Peyton Manning is not worth $20 million a year as a broadcaster. As a quarterback, at one point, yes. But not as a broadcaster. Having said that, though, if they can get a Super Bowl out of it, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or how many, it's worth it. Getting Al Michaels would be fantastic. Now, there is some precedent to trading for a broadcaster. This is from Andrew Marchand of the New York Post. When Al Michaels was calling games for ABC. Remember, ABC had Monday Night Football for a really long time. Then it moved to ESPN. John Madden was originally slated to go with Michaels, but Madden left for NBC, so Michaels asked out of his contract. He wanted to go to NBC with John Madden. ESPN obliged, but the only reason that they did it was so they could get the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, who was supposed to be Disney's flagship character before Mickey Mouse came to be. I don't know how Oswald the Lucky Rabbit got to Universal in the first place. Universal is the company that owns NBC. And you can obviously understand why Disney would want its character back. But there is precedent for this. And it makes sense for NBC to do this for no other reason than they spent a bunch of money to lure Mike Tirico away from ESPN with the promise that he would take over for Al Michaels eventually. Well, Michaels doesn't seem like he's going to be retiring anytime soon. It's possible he could retire in 2022. That's been speculated. that's when NBC gets the Super Bowl next. I think the next 3 Super Bowls are CBS, NBC, Fox. I know that CBS and NBC traded with each other so that NBC could pair the Super Bowl with the Olympics. Kind of smart, actually. But Michaels has never said that he's gonna retire. He's still going strong. He's still one of the best play-by-play guys in sports. There's no reason to think that he still can't be that in 3 years. NBC spent a bunch of money on Mike Tirico. They might as well use him. You pair Mike Tirico with Chris Collinsworth, I think you've got something there. I like Collinsworth. It's going to be really interesting to see who ends up calling Monday Night Football next year. They tried with Tony Romo. Obviously, they couldn't get it done. They want Peyton Manning. That's very well known. The issue is going to be his play-by-play guy. I don't think it'll be Tessitore. Even though I don't think Tessitore is bad, I don't think you can make that type of an investment in Peyton Manning and pair him with Joe Tessitore. I just don't think it's going to work. One thing I was thinking of was having Cooper Manning as the play-by-play guy. Because even though Cooper does have some football experience, and I think middle and high school, I don't think he ever played the game in college, and he certainly never played the game in the NFL. Cooper would be a great play-by-play guy. Actually, I just looked it up. He played high school football, but not college football. He was slated to go to Mississippi, but he was diagnosed with spinal stenosis. So, that ended his career right there. So, hey, you want to have Cooper and Peyton Manning in the booth for Monday Night Football? Try it. Actually, I just noticed something. I'm looking at Cooper Manning's Wikipedia page. It's his birthday today. He turns 46 today. Happy birthday, Cooper! Alright. Maybe your gift is you get to do play-by-play with your brother. And you know what? Bring Eli in too. Have him as the sideline reporter. Let's Manning it up. Let's do it. Alright, moving on to stories that concern play on the field. According to Josina Anderson of ESPN, Melvin Gordon is going to hit free agency. And on a personal note, I'd be very surprised if he re-signed with the Chargers. It's clear that the Chargers value Austin Eckler more than him. They let Gordon hold out for 4 games. They didn't make a huge effort to bring him back. And I think they are very content to roll into next season with Eckler and insert day 2 running back here as their backfield for Justin Herbert. And I gotta say, I don't hate the decision for the Chargers. You know, if this is really the route they want to go, I can sort of kind of understand it. Look, I still value the running back position. I'll take guys like Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, and Saquon Barkley over the Bilal Powells and Austin Ecklers of the world any day. Is Eckler better than Powell? Yeah, but in a perfect world, he's a backup. He's a great receiving back, but he shouldn't be your starting running back. And when Gordon came back, he started 11 games. Now, did he have a good year last year? Not by his standards. And not really by anyone's standards. He still rushed for 8 touchdowns, though. The rushing yards aren't there. He only rushed for 612 yards, but 8 touchdowns is pretty good. The yards per game went down from what they usually are. The attempts per game went down from what they usually are, though. He fumbled the ball a little more than he usually does. He fumbled it 4 times. If you're looking for a running back, though, you can do a lot worse than Melvin Gordon. He's still talented. He's still only 26 years old. He'll be 27 when the season starts. He'd make sense for the Dolphins if they really want to try to go for this thing and help Tua out. Because we all know they're taking Tua. They are not taking Jordan Love at 5. They would be insane to. They have to take Tua at 5. It's just that simple. I understand the school of thought that you don't want to throw a bunch of money at a running back. You know, there are some times that you can get good enough production out of unknown guys, but look, having an elite running back just adds another dimension to your game. If you can't see that, then you shouldn't be watching football. Now, as of right now, is Melvin Gordon elite? No, but in 2018, he certainly was. He made the Pro Bowl. He would have rushed for 1,000 yards if he'd stayed healthy. And he rushed for 10 touchdowns. I understand what the Chargers are doing. I don't hate it. They already burned their bridge with him. They might as well finish it off. And if you want to go with Eckler and a day 2 running back to help out Justin Herbert, I really can't say I blame you. And it's going to be interesting to see where Gordon ends up. I think the Dolphins make sense to help out Tua. Speaking of running backs, according to Mike Garofalo of NFL.com, the Chiefs are not going to bring back LeSean McCoy. And to be honest with you, this doesn't come as a surprise to me, seeing as though he didn't play at all in their playoff run. Look, McCoy was a really good try by Andy Reid. It made perfect sense. I don't think anyone wanted them to go into the season with just Damian Williams and Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson. So you're bringing a guy like LeSean McCoy who knows Reid's system and is better than all of the Chiefs running backs, including Damian Williams. It made perfect sense. But for whatever reason, McCoy just didn't work out in Kansas City. I mean, he's not getting any younger. He's going to be 32 when the season starts. There are some running backs who at that age just slow down. Frank Gore is the exception that proves that rule. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if McCoy retired. If he wants to try it again as a backup somewhere else, he can. You can certainly do worse than LeSean McCoy. He wasn't terrible last year. He averaged 4.5 yards per attempt. That's the 5th highest total of his career. He's not a bad player right now. He's just not the shady McCoy of old. All in all, it's not a bad decision by the Chiefs to get rid of him, but they have to draft a running back high. I think it makes sense for them to draft a running back in the first round. When you're a great team, you have the luxury of reaching for positions of need. I understand the school of thought that you never take a running back in the first round. I disagree with it, but I hope that those people would understand that the Chiefs are a great team. They have a glaring need at running back, and it would make a ton of sense for them to fill that hole with the 32nd overall pick. Whether it's a guy like J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, or even Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'd be surprised if DeAndre Swift lasted until 32, though. I could see him going in the late teens. Moving over to basketball now, and a very, very interesting NBA trade rumor. According to Frank Isola, the Knicks are eyeing Chris Paul as a potential trade candidate. Even though they could have just traded for him last year and not signed every power forward in existence. And they could have gotten some draft picks and some young players for Chris Paul. They want to do it now when his value has increased. Okay. Better late than never, I guess. For a long time, Chris Paul was rumored as being interested in playing in New York, whether it was for the Knicks or Nets. And he's had a career resurgence this year. He made his first All-Star game since 2016. He's averaging 17.5 points a game, 5 rebounds, 6.7 assists. He's shooting the ball incredibly well. Chris Paul is still a great player. I gotta say this, though. It actually makes sense for the Knicks to go after Paul. Every team that he's been on recently, forget those early Hornets teams. Those were terrible teams. Every team that he's been on recently has been a playoff team. No one on this earth picked the Thunder to make the playoffs this year. But because of Paul and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder are currently the 6th seed in the West. Paul's a veteran. He'll help a guy like R.J. Barrett learn the ropes. And Mitchell Robinson too. And whatever young player the Knicks draft this year. The contract doesn't concern me. It really doesn't. He can still play. Is he worth over $40 million? Absolutely not. But he can still play. And the Knicks aren't going to use their cap anyway until they're competitive. We've been over this a million times. Stars don't go to losing organizations. Now, the worst thing that the Knicks could do would be to trade for Chris Paul and then flip him halfway through the year, or at the draft, or whenever, to try to make a play for big free agents. No. That's how you gave away Kristaps Porzingis. You don't want to do that again. I will give Leon Rose the benefit of the doubt here. I think that he's trying to build this team the right way. He's going to try to build through the draft. He's going to try to trade for guys as opposed to just signing a bunch of free agents. I've seen some people say that the Knicks would be able to get young players or draft picks from the Thunder in exchange for taking Paul. I don't think that's true. I'll tell you right now, if that is what the Knicks asked of me, if I was Sam Presti, I would say no. This guy was an all-star for me last year. I'm not going to give him away. Make me a good offer. Quite honestly, if you want to trade one of the Dallas picks and one of your young guards, I'd consider it. But I don't think that the Thunder are in any hurry to trade Chris Paul. Unless they're going through a payroll purge, in which case, shame on them. It also doesn't bother me that Leon Rose was Chris Paul's agent. I understand that it's a bad optic, especially when you've seen what Brody Van Wagenen has done with the Mets. But we all know that Chris Paul can still play. If you watch the Thunder, you can see it. It's not like he's signing him to a crazy contract that he doesn't deserve. He's already been signed to that contract. I gotta say, it makes sense for the Knicks to bring in Paul and have him help this team into the future. Moving on now to Yoán Moncada. And this continues the trend of the White Sox locking up their pre-arbitration eligible guys. They already locked up Eloy Jimenez. They locked up Luis Robert. I don't think Aaron Bummer was arbitration eligible when they signed him to his extension. Well, they just did it with Moncada, and they did it at a bargain. 5 years, $70 million. That is $14 million a year for a guy who last year hit .315 with 25 homers and 79 RBIs. Just 2 years ago, Moncada looked like he was going to be a bust. He struck out more times than anyone in baseball. He only hit .235 with 17 homers and 61 ribbies. But the White Sox stuck with him. And he rewarded them with a great year. There is no reason to think that he can't put together years like that for the rest of his career. We all know the talent that Moncada is. He was an incredibly highly thought of prospect in Boston's system. And he was the crown jewel of the trade that sent Chris Sale to the Red Sox. Michael Kopech was the second big piece in that deal. To lock this guy up for $14 million for 5 years? That's incredible! I understand he's not getting $14 million all 5 years. It's $1 million this year, $6 million the year after, $13 million the year after, $17 million the year after, and $24 million the year after that. There's also a $25 million option in 2025 that the White Sox can buy out at $5 million. I get all that. But the simple fact is, the AAV of this deal is $14 million. That's what you have to look at here. I think this is a no-brainer for the White Sox. I love what they're doing, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they made the playoffs this year. The AL Central is wide open. The White Sox have positioned themselves incredibly well to win that division for now and the years to come. Alright, now on to the eulogy of the Pocket Rocket, Henri Richard. If you're even a casual hockey fan, I'm sure you've heard the name Maurice Rocket Richard. The guy was known as the Babe Ruth of hockey. They named the award for most goals in a year for him. And he is, in my opinion, the 5th best player in NHL history. Well, not too far behind him, at 18, is his brother, Henri. He was constantly overshadowed by his brother, and the fact that he was playing with some of the greatest players in hockey history, in Jean Beliveau, Yvan Cournoyer, Bernie Boom Boom Geoffrion, and Jacques Lemaire. But you know what? Outside of Beliveau, the Pocket Rocket had more points than all of them. He was an incredible player in his own right. One of the best centers of his era. Was an excellent passer. He also holds the record for most Stanley Cups won as a player with 11. Jean Beliveau has 10. Now he has 17 if you count the 71 as an executive, but 10 as a player. Richard lasted 20 years with the Habs and was only captain for the last 4 seasons. And it was there that he won his only individual trophy. He won the Masterton in the 73-74 season. It's incredible how this guy was only a 4-time All-Star. It just speaks to how great the original six was. Some of the best players in hockey history were playing alongside him. It's very difficult to make your mark there. But the Pocket Rocket did it to the best of his ability. He was actually born on Pirates of Penzance Day, February 29th. So I don't know if I can say that he died at the age of 84, but I guess technically he did. Actually, it's really apropos. Today, I'm going to be doing a taped interview with someone who wrote a book on Toe Blake, who was Henri Richard's coach for a little bit. So you can bet that I'm going to ask about the Pocket Rocket. May he rest in peace. On Monday, you're going to get a Brooklyn Nets show. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. It may be just spewing more hatred at the Knicks. I mean, that's a show that's really more of a fan show than anything else. I try to keep it impartial like I do everything, but let's be honest, there's a lot to hate about the Knicks from a partial and an impartial perspective. You'll also get the Jacob Valk show in the afternoon, as per usual, with an exclusive interview that I'm going to do with Bill Ripken. That is right, the former major leaguer, now a personality on MLB Network. He has a book out called State of Play. It's going to be a lot of fun. I gotta tell you, I read this thing last night. I figured I would just skim it. I couldn't put it down. It was great. I loved it. I can't recommend that book enough. I seriously can't. Hope you have a good weekend. Until Monday, I am Jacob Valk saying that while rich people have maids, baseball teams have coaches.